Well, hello, Lindsey. I am so excited to have you on the podcast. Thank you for being here with me.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
So we were chatting before we started recording, and I've known you now. I think it's been like three years or so. So I was, telling you this is like a long time coming to record with you, and I'm just so grateful and appreciative to have you on the podcast. So yay! Before we dive into it, just tell everyone a little bit about you and who you are, your business, really anything you want to share, and then we can dive into the good stuff. The other good
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, my name's Lindsay, and I'm the owner of Weatheredwood Home. I started my business in 2017, but since then it has gone through a lot of changes and it's evolved where now we have a lifestyle brick and mortar boutique, two Airbnbs, and we are a candle brand that makes clean burning wood wick candles. That specializes in unique fragrance combinations and inspired by nature.
I love that so much. And I was, telling you beforehand how much I love, in particular, one of your candles, the lemon and lilac. It is like the best smelling thing absolutely ever. Um, for anyone here who likes candles, you definitely need to order a candle from her because her candles are just incredible. We'll talk about her brand in a little bit, but I just want to start off by saying how much I am like obsessed. And I'm not a huge candle person. I like candles. I buy them mainly for gifts for other people. And I do buy candles for my house, but mainly I've only ever bought like Christmassy, like balsam fir. Like I love that kind of scent. But I think your lemon candle has converted me. Like I think I'm now a candle person. So
I love that. That particular scent has been our best seller.
it's
Definitely
so
a favorite.
good. It's so good. It's
It
so,
is so
so, so good.
good.
Ugh. Okay. So you mentioned you have your candle business, you have your brick and mortar shop. What, but, and I know you because I've known you now for a few years. What did you do before that? Because I know you also have like a million other businesses that you're just like glossing over. So let's hear like the early days of your entrepreneur journey. Like, what did that look like? What kind of business did you start off with?
Yeah, it started off really by accident because I loved woodworking and building furniture in my garage. And we had newly moved into our home, and I was building furniture for our house. And I loved doing that so much. But when I ran out of things to build for myself, I started building things for friends and family. And just thought I really like doing this. I would like to do this more than just a hobby, but I knew that building large pieces like furniture was only going to go so far because I didn't want to have to figure out how to ship something that big. And
Mhm.
being from a small town, I just knew that it was going to be a little bit harder to get people to come and pick up their pieces. So I thought if I could do a product that is smaller in size that I love to build, that could be shipped all around the United States, that's something I could do. So
Mhm.
I started building reclaimed wood frames. We started off by just tearing off barn wood off of some old barns that were fallen down on our land. And then I started going picking or junking, as we call it, and
Dunking.
buying up, yeah, where you'll go and sometimes literally dig through people's trash and you'll find old pieces of wood, reclaimed wood from old houses, old barns, and I would use those to build my frames. And I started an online shop selling them that way. And so that was really how my business got its start. And
Mhm.
I did that for a few years.
Okay. And then, so then you went from that business, and I know now you have your brick and mortar shop and you have recently started your candle business. So these are like a lot of, I feel like I resonate and connect with you so much because I feel like my journey hasn't been the same as yours, but like in similar ways. Like you start off with one thing and then you're like, okay, cool. This is cool for a few years, but now I want to do this like different thing. And it's very different but like the same at the same time. Like I feel like once you start your first business, at least for me, how I feel is you have that like pull and you're like, okay, what else can I do? Like, I want to do another business. I want to do a different business. And you really learn, you take things that you've learned from the first business and you're like piggybacking off of that. So I was like having a conversation with one of my good business friends yesterday who she has a subscription box business. And I was actually her coach a couple of years ago. That's how I know her. She found me in a Facebook group and, whatever. Like, I don't need to tell that whole backstory, but she has since started like a million businesses. She's crazier than I am and you. And she was like telling me about her newest business and how it's doing so well and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, how is your subscription box business doing? I haven't heard I haven't seen you post about it. I haven't heard anything. And she was basically like, I think she used the phrase, it's dead, but alive. Like she was like, I have some subscribers. I don't care about it anymore. Someone else is fulfilling the orders for her. So she's like literally not doing anything with the business. It's still making a little bit of money. And I was like, why don't you sell the business and just move on? Like, it sounds like you're just ready to move on from it. Like, you just told me that you don't care about the business at all anymore. She's like, I know. And I don't even know why I'm bringing this story up. I think like, oh, okay. Cause I said to her, take what you learned from the first business. Like, cause I sold my first business and I think we get very afraid, like, oh my God, it's our first business. It's our little baby. We've poured our heart and soul into it. And I think there's nothing like the first one. I think that could be like your most special one because that's where you probably did the most growth and learning. But I was like, look at this as an opportunity. Like you started this business, you learned so much, you take what you learned from that business and you apply it to the next one. So it's like you're piggybacking that everything off of that first business. So who cares if you're going to sell it? Who cares if you have to close it? Like that doesn't reflect anything negative on you. It's like you're taking the good learning parts from that and you're applying it to your next business, So I feel like the reason I brought that up is because I feel like so many of us who start a business and we're like, I'm not feeling it anymore. And I want to talk to you about like pivoting and all that, because I know that obviously you have pivoted a lot in your business, but I think we can have a lot of fear around change and pivoting and like, oh my God, I started this reclaimed wood business, like, but maybe I'm not feeling it anymore, or like I'm burnt out, or I just want to do something different. And I think a lot of us have fear around change and like, what can I do? Will people buy? How I put so much work into this first business? Like, what should I do? So anyway, that story was just about that because I think so many other people listening have felt the same way of, I have a business, I've been doing it for a couple of years now, but like, it's not lighting me up anymore. What do I do? So I'd love to hear that from you because obviously you had the first business and then you started your brick and mortar and then now you moved into candles. So maybe talk through what made you pivot like multiple times. How are you feeling? Were you feeling overwhelmed? Were you feeling burnt out? Were you like, walk us through how you're feeling?
Yeah. Oh, I think what you were just talking about, the fear of change is so real, especially when you're a multi-passionate person, but you've put yourself in a certain niche. And you feel like you need to remain in that box, but you are a multi-passionate person. You do have other goals that maybe you had even before you started that business. Like I said, it was in a way an accidental business because I was just making those frames because I loved woodworking. And I was scared to make that change away from making the frames because I didn't want anybody to think that I didn't love woodworking anymore. I still absolutely love it. Like it was just a lifestyle change, when you have kids and they are growing up and they're getting busier and just life changes and it's okay to make those changes along with it. But it's hard to do just because, especially when it's something so different, like when you're going from building frames online to opening up a brick and mortar to now making candles. It just sounds so random. But to me, I just feel like, no, this all makes sense to me because it's what I'm interested in at this point in time.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to learn to let myself evolve and grow, and those
Mhm.
that want to follow along can. And if it's, if somebody was initially engaged with my business because of the frames only and I'm not doing that anymore, then that's totally fine. But you just have
Yeah.
to do what's best for you and follow your interest. And it can be hard when you have a lot of interest,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
I think the evolution, so the candles are what I'm doing now. I still have my
Mhm.
brick and mortar, but the brick and mortar came after making the frames and starting online. But that was actually a goal that I had when I started making the furniture for friends and family. I
Okay.
did a booth at a market days type of event. And I remember I loved setting up my booth space. I set it up like a little store, and it was it was just so much fun to have people come into my booth, and I felt like I had a little store, and I just thought this is great. And we have a really charming downtown area in my town with a lot of old buildings with a lot of character. And I just always thought it would be really neat to remodel one of those buildings and have a little brick and mortar boutique. And I just envisioned myself getting dressed up for the day and going into my store and turning the sign to open and,
I love it.
all those things. And so I thought that would be a goal down the road. But in order to be able to have a business that would be able to go for the long run, I would have to have an online presence in a way, because we can only have so many people come through the door in my small town. So I live in a town with 2,000 people. And we
Oh,
do get
wow.
busier in the summertime, but for the most part, there's just not a lot of foot traffic. And so you do need to have an online presence or an online way of selling your products in order to make a go at that.
Yeah.
So I'll set this goal for later and make the frames online for now. And when the pandemic hit, our downtown was already kind of suffering a little bit. There were a lot of buildings that were closed and for sale. And I don't know. I just wanted to see our downtown thriving again. And I was to the point where I needed to reinvest in my business by having my own workshop. So I thought either I build a workshop on my home property, or I can go ahead and take this leap and buy one of these buildings and invest in our community and do the brick and mortar. And so we went that direction because I
Mhm.
thought, everything else is shut down right now. This is kind of a good time to put my frame business on pause, because it wouldn't be so unusual with a lot of businesses pivoting at that
Yeah.
time. And so that was a good opportunity to take that leap. And so we went that direction. But it was just a lot more extensive and time consuming than I ever anticipated. So we wrapped that project up, and it was a little bit harder to jump back into making my frames. I think after going through all that, I built pretty much all of the display pieces and furniture for that building, and in a short period of time. And it did honestly
Wow.
like burn me out a little bit.
Mhm.
And then not anticipating how busy it would be once everything did open back up. We were actually extremely busy that first year, and it was like drinking from a fire hose. So it was me trying to balance the old business with the new business. And I finally just had to give myself the grace to say something's got to be put on pause for now. And so I no longer make the frames, but I have the brick and mortar, I have the Airbnb, and I just solely did that for a year and a half.
Mhm.
And then I missed the maker side of things. like when I was making my frames. I
Mhm.
I loved creating something from nothing so much. And I think after stepping away from that for a while, I was really ready to dive back into being a creative and being a maker. I just knew that I needed a different type of product because I wasn't going to be able to physically make those frames anymore with how my life had changed.
I love that so much. And I have to have you just give a little bit of context because you casually threw in, oh, and an Airbnb.
Yeah.
Can you just talk about like, what do you mean when you say you have an Airbnb? I
Yeah.
know the story, but I want everyone else to hear it because these are all these really cool little threads that you're building off of. It's not just one business. It's like you're creating all these multiple streams of income. So that's what I hear when I hear you talking about these different things. Because also with your candles, now you're able to have this new brand online, but also sell them in your shop. So I just feel like there's so much cool little nuggets here. But yeah, tell everyone what you mean when you say Airbnb.
Yeah. So the brick and mortar boutique of ours is downstairs, and then we have an upstairs to this old building that we bought. And nothing had been in that building upstairs, I think, since the 1920s. It was just a shell and a blank slate, really. And I feel like there's a lot of old buildings in small towns that could do the same thing that we did. But I thought while we are remodeling the downstairs, let's go ahead and remodel the upstairs and just maximize our space. I mean, why not pull the band-aid off and do it all in one shot rather than set up the brick and mortar downstairs and then have to do construction above us later on.
Mm,
I just literally wanted the dust to settle all at the same time. So
like
we remodeled
literally.
the upstairs, and we have two loft apartments that we put on Airbnb, and it's done really well. It's fun to have people come and visit. I've
Mhm.
always wanted to have a guest room in my house and host people, and this is my way of doing that. So
That's so awesome. I know I'll have to come sometime. I've never been to Kansas, and just seeing all your amazing pictures of your house and like this beautiful outdoor space and the green hills. I'm like, I didn't know Kansas was so pretty, but I'm down to visit. So I'll have to come and
yes,
stay at your Airbnb.
it's so beautiful in this area that I live, but not a lot of people know about it because
Mhm.
it is such a small part of Kansas. I live in the Flint Hills, and it literally looks like Ireland in the spring and summer. Everything is so green, and there's rolling hills. We have the most beautiful sunsets, and I think just it's a hidden treasure that people have yet
Yeah.
to figure out.
Sounds amazing. I love it. Okay, cool. So I love the Airbnb thing because I think that again, I know we're talking about sort of like pivoting in your business and figuring out what success looks like in your business, but I also just want to point out that you've done all these really cool things and buying a building in a town, renovating it, that's not an easy project by any means. But you're also setting yourself up for multiple streams of income by adding the Airbnbs and the two, I think you said two Airbnb or two lofts that you have in there. So I think that's amazing. And with a brick and mortar, like you can now sell your own product, which is another thing. And you can do other cool things like you could host workshops and there's just like so much opportunity. And I think for someone who is super creative like you and multi-passionate, you're like the definition of multi-passionate, just having a space that's yours that you can do all these really cool things um is just amazing. So I love that so much. So let's kind of go back a little bit because I feel like you grew the frame business, and to my knowledge, you grew that was a successful business. Like you had a lot of loyal customers who would always buy your frames. It was doing really well. What happened during that time? Did you feel like the success wasn't really what you had envisioned, or was there something that wasn't fulfilling you that made you kind of want to roll that back and just start something different? I would kind of love to hear about that because I know a lot of people, you grow your business, you get to that six-figure mark or whatever milestone you're looking for, and then you're like, oh, well, I don't actually like my business. I mean, I went through the same thing with my current business last year, just was not liking my business. I wasn't liking what I was doing. I was getting really wrapped up in a lot of things that just, I don't know, like the hustle. I mean, I'm a hustler. I know you are too, but at some point, like we don't need to live by the hustle culture. But yeah, like talk a little bit about how you're feeling. Cause I know a lot of people listening in particular have gone through transitional things. And I think it's always really important to remind people that it's normal to feel like you want to pull back or you want to change or you don't like your business anymore. And it's like, okay to change that. So if you want to share anything about that, I think that would be great.
Yeah. For me, I got to the point where the demand was exceeding the supply. Like I could only make so
Mm.
many, and it was a little bit hard just to um well, okay, let me explain how I sold my frames. I would call them restocks. And so I would list all of the frames that I would make for the month on my website. And I would email my list and put it out there on social media that my restock is going to be this day at this time. It's, get them before they're gone. And
Mhm.
with making these frames from such a limited material, they knew, and being a handmade product, they knew that there were only so many that were going to be offered. Well, as my social media and email list grew, I definitely had more people and then I had frames wanting to buy. And so it would be a little bit hard to list them all. And then, I'm getting on Shopify and you can see where everybody's hopping on the website. And there was, at one point over 1,000 people on the website right when I listed my restock. And I only had
Wow.
about 60 frames. So I knew that they would sell out. And inevitably, I would wait for the angry emails to come in about, I didn't get a frame, you know. I felt so bad because I wanted everyone to be able to get one, but there was only so many that I could make. And so I think for that reason and the fact that I was making them almost like a machine because I was trying to make more in order to offer more to people. And so I definitely got my systems down really efficiently,
Mhm.
but that also made it to where I felt more like a factory instead of making something creatively. And so what I love about the candles is I could scale that business. I could have people come in and help me. I could grow that if I needed to, if it ever got to the point where it was like with my frames. Whereas with the frames, I kind of hit a ceiling and could only do so much.
Mm. So you feel like with the candles, you see more of an opportunity of scale. Like I can take what I learned from the first few businesses and I can really make the candle business not only work, but, work very well and not have some sort of like, okay, I can only sell 60 candles this month. So,
Yeah,
okay. Gotcha.
exactly. And I can still be creative in that the scent possibilities are endless. I just feel like
Mhm.
I can still have that creative side that is going to be really fulfilling to me, but I could also have the business side that can be scalable and sustainable too. I mean, I could have somebody help me out making candles, whereas with the frames, I couldn't really have anybody help me out. That would have required more power tools and liabilities that I didn't want to go down that road.
Oh my God. Yes. That sounds very smart. Um, no, that makes total sense. And I think, it's really important, I think, especially for people starting off, when you have ideas for a product-based business, you know, and this is something I really learned like just from my first business. My first business, um, I would say scalable, but like only to a point because I was doing so much personalization for people in the subscription box that I had. And, now 7 years later, after starting my first business, you know, if I was ever going to do a product-based business, there's so many things that would be removed from the list immediately if this is not a scalable business, if the profit opportunity is not high enough, if the outsourcing opportunity. Like, am I the only person in the whole world who can make this? If the answer is yes, then that business is not like a no-go for me. But I think you don't know that unless you go through it the first time. And then you figure out, okay, there's a cap at this. There's only so much I can do. There's only so much of me I can give. And like that business that you had sounds very labor intensive, like you leaning over power tools, and like that's physical labor that, at some point that could cause, like, you might get an injury or something. So I love that you kind of, took a break from making things, started the brick and mortar, and you're like, all right, I'm ready to be creative and make my own stuff again. And I want to talk about like what lights you up, because I think I already know what it is, but I just want to kind of hear from you, like what lights you up when it comes to these businesses. But now you're able to say, okay, this business is more scalable. I can make more money and do something that I love. So I think that's amazing and really, really smart. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you because you've had a lot of different businesses now. What do you think the one thing that just kind of like makes you the most excited out of everything, out of all your businesses? Like, what's like the one part of it or piece that you love the most?
Yeah, I love putting my own twist on things or making something in my own unique way. So you mentioned the different businesses that I've had, and another business that I had within my brick and mortar really was, and this is how we got to meet each other, was a subscription box that I wanted to start. Because shortly after opening up my brick and mortar, I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I tie in my physical boutique with my online store? I knew that I couldn't make the frames, but I still had this online audience and I needed to offer something to them. And I didn't really want to list the individual items in my store. It just seemed like kind of a lot of work, frankly. And I would either have had to have two different inventories, or I don't know. It was just too complicated for me. I wanted to keep things simple. So I thought I could take what I have in my store and put it in like a gift box type of subscription box and offer that quarterly. And I thought that would be a good way to tie the two together. But one reason I think that did not last for me, and it was great. I mean, it went over really well. But for me, I didn't really feel fulfilled in that because I wasn't making like my own thing for the box. I was just putting in products from my store into this box. And I realized like I'm just that type of person that, I don't know if it's the control freak in me, that I just like putting something that I make, I like putting it out there. I think it's because I know that the perfectionist side of me is going to make sure that it is high quality and it's unique, something that they can't find anywhere else and that somebody else can't offer. So I think that's kind of what led to thinking about making the candles and going down that path again. Because I thought I want to put my own spin on something.
I love that. And I think so many people want to actually make a product, like there is something special about it's your thing, it's your product, like it comes from a cool place of love in some point. So I think that's super awesome. And I feel like I knew you were going to say that when I asked you, like, what's like the one thing that you just love more than anything else? My thing would be marketing. So I personally like have no interest in physically making a product. I would love to manufacture, like I manufacture dog bandanas. So I did make them. I didn't personally or physically make them myself. They were manufactured. But for me, like my favorite thing is the marketing, like taking a vision or an idea, bringing it to life, and then like all the things that go to it, like figuring out the colors and the branding and the fonts and like figuring out how to make people fall in love with it when they see it on social media or like when they're scrolling through a blog, what's going to make that product stand out. Like that's my just like love language kind of thing. So I always think it's interesting that I need to ask people that question more because I think everyone has different responses because some people absolutely despise marketing and I just like, I couldn't love it anymore. But I actually don't, I would never want to make a physical product because I know I would just get bored with it. I would get burnt out. And I don't know. I already know like that wouldn't be my thing. So I think it's awesome that everyone just has like their own little things that they like. But that's why makers are like so many people I meet, they're like, I'm a maker. I don't want to sell the product. I'm doing it because I love making it. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
and we're like, all right, well, that's great, but we also need to like, if we're not marketing, then people aren't going to know about your product. So we gotta kind of do both. But I love it so much.
Yeah, that's I think my weakness is, and I love branding and I do love marketing, but I tend to lean so much on the making side of things that I'll make it and then I forget. I'm like, oh wait, I haven't really even told people about this. I really like they won't know about it unless I tell them, but I like making it so much.
I think that is so normal. I can't even tell you how many people that I've had in my programs that have said those exact words. Like,
Yeah.
I love making it. And I'm thinking of one person in particular who she makes like soaps and lip balms and things like that. She's coming to mind right now, but like everyone, it's the same thing. It's like we love making the product. We love the craft behind it, but we don't like we're not good at selling. And I think
Yeah.
that's not like, I think you're awesome at marketing. So I feel like you are discrediting yourself, but I know what you mean about like the maker and the marketing. I feel like you love to make it, but then you're like, I don't really feel like I want to sell it. You know, someone else can sell it for me.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I get in my mind about it anyways. I struggle with it because I don't know. I guess it's the shy introvert part of me that just wants to make it and say, here it is.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. But really, I know in how much time I put into it that it is a really good product
Hmm.
that I feel like people would really enjoy, just like I've enjoyed other people's products so much. And wouldn't know if they had new launches or whatever unless they told me. But
Exactly.
I need to take my own advice there.
Well, I always tell people, you know, don't be afraid. And I think of my own business like this. Like, I'm not afraid to sell my programs, my courses, anything, because I know that I'm helping people with their business. I'm helping people solve like a pain point for them, whether it's getting more visibility or starting a customer loyalty program or, you know, whatever it is. Like, I can help you. And if I can't help you, then I don't offer that service, or I tell you I can't help you. But I have like no shame. I'm not aggressive, but I will promote my services all the time. And I have no shame in saying that because I know I'm helping someone. And it's the same for a product. Like, your product is helping someone. It's solving a pain point for someone. It's making, you know, like for you, like you create these awesome products that can be given for housewarming gifts to make someone's house smell amazing and bring back all these, like we've talked about this before, bring back all these amazing memories from like, you know, childhood, the lemon and lilac, like so many cool things can come from a candle. It's not just about the product. It's like how the product makes someone feel. It's how it um helps transform them in some way. So I think when you think of that in that way, like, of course you should sell your product, you know?
Yeah.
And for your product too, it is awesome because your products, you know, you're going like the non-toxic route. We've had a million conversations inside the Cultish product program, of course, but like your candles are not filled with junk that harms people. They're natural and all that kind of stuff. So your candles are not like, you're helping people learn and be educated on how horrible so many candles are for you in their house. And, you know, people are buying candles from, you know, Amazon or Home Goods or whatever, Yankee Candle, and lighting them up and spreading toxins in their house. And they have no idea, like they're unaware, blissfully unaware that these candles are actually poisoning them, essentially. Maybe that might be an exaggeration. I don't know. You tell me, but it's true. You're putting all this shit in the air and your kids are breathing in, your pets are breathing in, you're breathing it in. And that's not good for you. So I would think of your candles as, you know, I'm actually helping educate people on the dangers of shitty candles.
Yeah, you can definitely buy a candle in the dollar section of Target, but it's
Oh,
absolutely not the
oh my
same.
God.
it will maybe last you a couple hours because it's going to burn really fast. And usually those fragrance oils are full of a lot of junk. And
Mhm.
that's what gives people a headache and maybe even turns them off to candles in general because they say that it bothers them or gives them a headache. And there's such a difference. I think when I started burning clean burning soy candles in my house and realizing how long they lasted,
Mhm.
I was a convert for life just because it's just kind of like quality makeup too. You know, when you first see the price tag, you're like, oh my gosh. But then it
Yeah,
lasts you forever and you realize that you're actually better off buying that quality product because it lasts longer in the long run.
I agree with you. And like skincare stuff. I'm like a
Yes.
huge psycho with expensive skincare products because I really only buy, for the most part, like all natural stuff from small brands. But it makes a huge difference if you go
Yeah.
to like your, I don't know what drugstore you have, like a CVS or Target, and you buy some shitty like $5 moisturizer, or you buy the $30 bottle from this small brand who is putting together this all natural, facial oil with really plant-based things, you'll notice a massive difference in your skin. So I think it's the same thing with candles. And I remember going to, I think it was like Yankee Candle Shop with my mom when I was, I don't even know how old, younger or maybe a teenager. I don't know. And like, I remember walking into that damn store and it was like,
Yes.
it's like it like hits you in the face with so much scent. And I have a very strong scent. I don't know if I told you before. I have like a super creepy, strong sense of smell. It's like my superpower sense that like is kind of useless. Like we don't really need a better sense of smell. Like what good is that? But I have one. It's like on overload. I can smell everything. Like anyway, but I remember going in that store and it was just like the overpowering smell of like, oh, it makes me want to throw up
Yeah.
now. It's just like so gross of
Yeah.
candle smell. And like those candles are just, even if you pick up an individual like Yankee candle, the smell is so strong and like not in a good way.
Yes.
It's like
No, it
smacks you in the
overpowers the room.
face. Yeah.
You don't want your candle to overpower the room and punch you in the face. You want it to
Yeah.
elevate the room and
Yeah.
create a nice ambiance.
Yes. Like your candle. Like I was telling you, I forget if I mentioned this at the beginning of the episode, but I got one of Lindsay's candles and it smells so good. It's a lemon and lilac. This is my personal favorite. I'm sure I'll love your other ones too. I know I bought another one. Actually, sorry, I bought one from you and you sent me that one as a like bonus. So thank you. But the smell is so, I can't even explain. It's so good. Lemon and lilac. So if you like candles and you love like summery spring scents, please buy yourself one. You will not regret it. It's like the best smelling ever. But I lit it a couple of times and then I'll bring it around and like I'll put it in my office if I'm working, or I'll put it next to my bed when I'm sleeping. And it gives the room like this super nice smell, but not like, whoa, what is that lemon? What is that Lysol scent or something? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the perfect level of scent. So yeah.
And I really like scents that are unique and interesting and really complex. Like you were mentioning Yankee candles, for example. I feel like their scents and a lot of other big box store candles are just really flat. You
Hmm.
know, I don't know. They're just too basic. There's not enough going on. And these,
Yeah.
at least the direction that I want to go in my candles is just making it more interesting and unique to where someone would walk in your home and be like, what is that? I really can't pinpoint it. You know, like the lemon and
Yeah.
lilac, it's not just a lemon, it's not just a lilac, it's a
So
interesting
good.
combination. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
I love that. What kind of like, what do you envision for this business in the future? Are you wanting to um, do you want to get into like a lot of stores? Like, what's your vision for the candle business? I feel like it's still new. It's still like not like a blank slate, but kind of because you can kind of do whatever on earth you want with it. So let's
Yeah.
hear what your vision is.
So, I remember when I started with my frames, I thought it would be so cool to have my frames in houses all across the United States. And that was really just a neat thing to me.
Hmm.
Now that I have my brick and mortar and I'm making these candles, I kind of feel like that way again, in that how cool would it be to have my candles in other boutiques like mine all across the United States? And so I
Love
think I
that.
would really love to focus on wholesale.
Hmm.
Of course, I'll always have the retail side of things because I mean, you have to have both,
Yeah.
at least a bit. But I really love the idea of connecting with other business owners like myself because I think I can relate to them by having my own brick and mortar. I understand what it's like to buy products from my store. And I know that I'm not going to be reaching out to any stores that wouldn't be a good, that my candles wouldn't be a good fit for them because I just know what it's like to be on that side of things. And so I would really love to go down that route. I also think I've always been a maker that likes to work in batches,
Hmm.
and wholesale is great for that because you're going to be doing large orders in batches. And so I think that just kind of fits my style of how I like making a lot.
I love that. And for the boutiques, are you looking at like a specific type of boutique or just in general, like kind of like shops like yours? I think like beautifully aesthetic vibe, kind of that kind of stuff. Or are you looking just to get in just like what's the word? Volume? No. I'm blanking on the word I'm thinking of, but like high volume, lower quality, quantity versus quality. That's what I'm thinking of. Oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? I have not had enough coffee today.
Yeah, I think I mean, I would put my candles anywhere and everywhere, but if
Mhm.
I'm going to be reaching out to other stores, I think they would be similar to mine, and in that they focus on quality over quantity.
Mhm.
They appreciate uh, just more unique products, handmade products. I know in my store, I really like to focus on handmade products from small businesses. And I think
Mhm.
I'd rather deal um, and work with business owners similar to that, that have
Yeah.
those same shared values. I just think that we'd be the
Yeah.
best fit in that way. So I think that's the route I'd like to go.
I love that. What about are you going to go on any of like the marketplaces like Fair and all those kind of things, doing trade shows?
Yeah, well, I'm already on Fair, but I am on there not for my candles yet. I'm still needing to upload that. I got on Fair really early on with my prints that I offered alongside my frames.
Okay.
And back when we were talking about your friend that kind of had a business that she just kind of ignored and was like, it's still
Mm,
there, but I don't do anything with it.
yeah.
That was kind of like my Fair. So now I'm ready to pay attention to that since I have a product that I'm really passionate about. Um, and as far as trade shows, I don't think that I'm going to be going to like retail markets just because I feel like my time could be better spent pitching or connecting with other boutiques like mine for wholesale. But I would be interested in going to like a bigger market like Atlanta's America's Mart or the Dallas market, maybe in a couple years
Yeah.
after I get more experience under my belt.
I love that. That's awesome. Okay, one more question.
Mhm.
What, since you've started a million businesses, what I was going to ask you one question, but I'm like, I kind of want to ask you this other one. Um, what do you think the biggest mistake that you've made is?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Kind of a tricky question because I feel like we've all made a million mistakes. I mean, I can tell you like 500 that I've made, but
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
like what
that's
do
the
you think
hard part is picking one.
like which mistake did I make? Yeah, just like anything that I don't know. I feel like sometimes if we ask people, "Oh, what is like your biggest lesson that you've learned?" and everyone always says the same shit. But like let's hear about like what's the biggest struggle or like what's a big mistake that you've made?
Yeah, I know the answer to that. I think when I was pivoting in my business and I was changing things up, I did not bring my audience along with me on the journey
Mm.
while I was feeling that way. That's something that I still struggle with. So I could say this is a mistake that's ongoing for me. Is I'm the type of person that I like to figure it out on my own in private. And then I'm just like, I'll appear out of nowhere and be like, I have it all figured out. Like, boom, I'm
Yeah.
launching this new thing. And no one really sees the back end of my mind working through it. And I think that's just because I'm naturally a private person and I just feel like, oh, why would they care? I'll just, figure it out myself and then reappear when I have my stuff together, And
Yeah.
so I feel like I wish I would do a better job with that because maybe people could relate to that and maybe they share that same struggle. And then maybe it would make more sense to people when all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm making candles now. And they wouldn't be like, what the heck? Because they would understand if they had gone on the journey with me of why or what led me to that point. But instead, I just kind of hold those things into myself. And
Mhm.
I when I'm ready to put it out there, I'm just like, oh, here it is. I did the same thing with the subscription box. I did the same thing with the brick and mortar. With all of them, really. I mean, I just never really uh let people in on that journey. So it probably
Yeah.
came surprising.
That's an awesome, I love that you answered that because it's a totally different response than I think. I don't usually ask this question actually, but I really need to start asking because I think we all hear the same, like, what's your biggest tip? But sometimes you want to hear, like, what's the biggest mistake that you made? Because I think people
Yeah.
have very different responses. And I think your response is really great in a sense that like you can still include them. And you know I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to say this through email marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You can include so much of that story that you just shared in your like sequences.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like pummel you about email marketing today, but in your sequences, you can share those in your like weekly emails and just pull back the curtain a little bit. It doesn't mean you have to share like a lot of personal information, but sharing with people the why, like this is why I'm changing my business. This is how I was feeling. And this is what I was going through. That stuff is so relatable. I mean, out of everything that you could ever talk about, talking about what you're struggling with is the most relatable stuff because
Yeah.
everyone in their business or people buying from you, it makes you look like a real human. Versus
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm perfect. My business is making $1 million a year and I only work 1 hour per week. And, all that kind of horse shit that we hear on like the YouTubers and the bro marketers with their like rented Lamborghinis. Like that's not real, but sharing why your business has been sucking for you and like what you're going to do about it and how you want to change your life for the better and you want like this is what success looks like to me and it might not be making $1 million a year, maybe it's having more free time and you're still making
Yeah.
candles and you're still doing what you like but you're not letting this like business stuff kind of dictate your whole thing. But anyway, that stuff is so relatable and that's exactly the kind of stuff that I would like yell at you to be sharing because
Yeah.
people, it's just relatable. It's relatable. And people that are reading that are like, oh yeah, she's like a real human. And like, I want to support this person. And you can do it on your own terms. Cause I know a lot of people, like I'm super private too, even though I share a lot of stuff in my, like on my social media, on my business account, a little bit on my podcast. I mean, I really do share a lot. There's certain things I don't talk about. Like I don't really talk about like my son a lot. I don't share a lot of stuff about him on photos. I'm a lot more private in that stuff. Um, but I share a lot of like my silly day-to-day stuff. Like, oh, look at the coffee I'm drinking. And like I went paddleboarding today and like I'm booking a bear trip and I share all that kind of stuff, like kind of like the fun stuff, but I'm very open with struggles and like, I just did a podcast episode on my business book and it was definitely like a vulnerable episode for me. I definitely don't love talking about feelings unless they're like, I'm obsessed with this and I love it. Like I don't like to talk about um non-happy feelings too much. I'm very like closed about stuff like that. I feel like you're probably the same way.
Oh,
People,
100%.
but people like those are the kind of things that people are like, oh, okay, like I can relate to her now because she's talking about shit that's bothering her or stuff that's scary or stuff that isn't working well. Cause I think we're so inundated with like all these people on Instagram and social media and YouTube and Facebook being like, I can help you make $1 million tonight. All you have to do is buy my course. And like, yes, I sell programs too, but I don't promise you $1 million. And I definitely don't promise you it's going to be like some easy breezy thing. I'm kind of like, you have to fucking put in the work and you have to show up and you have to do stuff. Like, it's not just going to happen for you. But I think we get so much, we get seen. Sorry, we get showed all these stupid people like the bro marketers and the coaches that are like, oh, if you're not making $1 million, you're a failure. Like there's so much bad stuff that is being sent out right now by these like scammy coaches that when you're sharing, oh, my business isn't doing great, or like, I'm not feeling good about my business, I think it feels scary because that's not what a lot of people talk about. They only talk about the good stuff. They only talk about I made this much money, but
Yeah.
how much profit did you make? How much are you paying yourself? How many hours a week are you working? You know what I mean? Like they don't share that stuff. And I think that's like the meat that we need to hear. So anyway, I feel like I'm completely rambling
Yeah.
as usual.
No, absolutely. It's so much more relatable when you can see people on the other side being like a real person just like you and having struggles.
Mm.
And I think from the outside in it, it might look like, yeah, that person has it going on, you know. But really I'm thinking my life is really boring and not that exciting. And listening back to just the evolution in my business,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like a lot, but to me, I just feel like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's not that exciting. I mean, it's really boring, my business is not boring, but my life in general is not as perfect and exciting as maybe it looks like on social media.
Yeah. Well, I think your life looks amazing and
Oh, I love my life. I just should say it.
I'm like obsessed with your outdoor space. I feel like when I saw your outdoor space, I'm like, oh my God, I need to change my whole life. Like, what am I doing? My house sucks.
I just love being outside in that outdoor space.
Mm,
That was such a saving grace too during the pandemic too, when we had to be
mm-hmm.
kind of isolated. It was nice to be able to go out there and see that part of life hadn't changed any.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. COVID. Doesn't it feel like it was like a million years ago, even though it wasn't?
Oh yeah, it's the weirdest thing. I mean, I feel like years got erased to where I'm like, was
Mhm.
that this year? No, it was 2 years ago. I don't even know. That concept of time is weird.
I know. I feel like I blocked certain parts of it out of my memory. I'm kind of like, I sometimes forget that it ever happened, which that sounds so dumb, but
Yeah,
it was a challenging time.
it was.
Yeah. Well,
So
this
many
was,
changes for a
yes,
lot of
so
people, I
many.
think. But I'll tell you what, I talk about this with my friends all the time. Like, we could call it a COVID holiday though, where the world shuts down for 2 weeks again,
Mhm.
because that was really nice, I will say. The fact that everybody kind of paused and got back to the realness in life and what means the
Yeah.
most. You had families all together at home. And I think that part of it was really nice. Or at least, we wouldn't have to make it 2 weeks long, but if we could have just a little bit of that once a year and be like, okay, everybody shut down, mandatory vacation for everybody.
This feels like a normal thing for Europeans. Like this,
Yeah, it probably is. Yes. It's so hard as
like Europeans
Americans,
like don't
to
work.
shut our brains off.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have two vacations this summer and I actually was thinking about this yesterday because as you know, I'm going on my bear trip to Alaska and I'm like, okay, I can only bring like a 15-pound bag. But it's like a camp trip. So we're staying at like, it's more like glamping, I'll say. It's not like sleeping in like a tent in the dirt. It's a nice, it's going to be nice. But like I can't bring a lot of stuff. And I was like, I actually, because I was looking at the itinerary yesterday and I was like, am I going to bring my laptop? And I'm like, no, you're not. Like your team is going to have to take over or people just get ignored for a week in their emails. But yeah, I think that's going to be like my trip where I literally don't work at all. And I haven't done a lot of that over the last 7 years since I started my first business. I mean, I think there's only been like a week or two that I have not worked at all, which that sounds kind of horrible, but
Oh,
maybe more than a few weeks. Maybe it's more than a few weeks, but for the most part, like I might not work for a few days, but then I'll work for like one day. Do you know what I mean? So it isn't like I've worked straight over the years, but I would say the last 2 years have been the only times where I have taken any time off, which that sounds horrible. Like, but I don't live like that anymore. So I've
this
changed.
vacation will do you so good.
It
You're
will
gonna
do me
love it.
good. Yeah. And I'm doing another trip in July, which I'm not planning on working either. I think I will have my laptop with me, but it doesn't mean I'm gonna like be working. I feel like I don't know. I also am going away and I feel like if I bring my laptop, it might spark like a new project or I don't know, something. It doesn't mean it has to be work stuff,
Yeah,
but you just never know. But my bear trip, I'm not bringing my laptop. So that will be good.
that's gonna be amazing. I cannot wait to hear about that trip. I'm like, kudos to you. I don't know if I'd want to see bears in real life like that close up.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Gosh.
Yeah, I'm a little crazy, but yeah, I don't know what to expect, but
Not just any bears, like the biggest bears. I mean, aren't these like Kodiaks?
they're brown bears. They're not Kodiak ones.
Oh, okay.
But I really want to see Kodiak bear. I'm actually dying to go to Kodiak Island in Alaska because those are the biggest.
Yeah.
They're like what we think of a grizzly bear, like which is the brown one, but they're not technically grizzly bears, but they are, for all intents and purposes. But yeah, I don't even, and someone asked me like, why the hell are you doing that? Like, what is wrong with you? And someone asked me when I was in Nashville last week for a trip it took me a second to respond because I was like, I have no idea. So I'm like a huge animal person. I've always loved animals. I've always liked bears. I think when I went to Alaska last year for a vacation, I think that's when I like fully fell in love with bears because um I saw grizzly bears somewhere. We went on some day trip somewhere and I saw a mom and three cubs getting salmon out of the water. And I saw the mom attempt to catch fish. We sat there for like half an hour watching it. It was like literally just this most magical thing. I can't even explain it. And I just watched this grizzly bear like in real life, not on a movie, not in a fucking zoo, not in a cage, catching salmon. And it was just this like magical, I don't even know. It's hard to explain it. There's this like magical pivotal moment for me. And I was like, and then you see the little cubs and she takes the fish, she catches it, brings it out of the water into this little woodsy area. And then the cubs like boop, boop, follow her. And then they would come back a few minutes later and then she would try to get more fish. It was like just the cutest thing I've ever seen in my whole life. And I sat there watching it just being like, these are just magical like beings. I don't even know. Like, and then I felt guilty that we're sitting here on a bus watching them and spoiling their natural habitat because Alaska really is like one of the only places where when you go there, you're like, this is what things used to look like before humans have ruined it and spoiled it. Like so many places don't have roads. And, like obviously the place we went to does have roads because we were on a fucking bus, but you still get this sense of nature. And so
Yeah.
I think when I came back, I always knew, okay, I want to do some kind of like, because I only saw them once and I was like, I want to go back and like see proper bears in Alaska. That's one of the things that you can do when you go there is like you can see actual grizzly bears. And then in January, I don't even know why I'm telling you so much information. In January,
I love it.
I wrote out my personal goals. So I sat there in a coffee shop writing out personal goals and business goals. And one of my personal goals I wrote for this year was to go on a bear trip to Alaska. And on my list of personal goals, it just randomly happened to be the first one I wrote out. It doesn't mean that that's like my biggest goal. It just, I wrote it out. And then I was sitting here one day, like a week later, sitting in my office, like right where I'm sitting now. And I was looking at my list and I'm like, when am I actually going to do any of these things? We write shit down. We write in our journals. I want to lose 80 pounds. I want to do this. I want to do that. And then it just collects dust. We take no action. And I really wanted this year in my life to be an action taking year, just not only for business stuff, but like personal. And like one of my big values now in my business is like creating a business around the life that I want and like using my business to fund fun things in my personal life. And so I sat there and I was thinking, and I was actually, that was when I started promoting the Cultish product program, which obviously you joined. So thank you. And I was sitting here and I'm just like, I'm telling people, talking about like all these things in their business of like, this is what you should do and you need to get visibility and da, da, da. And I was just like, I need to listen to my own advice in some way. And I literally just found a trip and I put down my deposit the same day. And it was just like, I put down $500. I did research. I found like the perfect thing for me. There wasn't a lot of options and I just put down a deposit. I didn't really think about it. And then I was like, okay, this is an expensive trip. This is the most expensive trip that I've ever just booked for myself. It felt very selfish, but I'm also like, I'm trying to help people create businesses that fund their own life. Like I want you to have a business that grows so much that you can go and plan cool trips wherever you want to, or whatever you want to do. So I'm like, I need to do the same thing I need to do the same thing. So I just was like, I'll figure out how to pay for it using my business. And I did. And that for me has been a huge pivotal moment because my first many years in business, I barely paid myself, all that kind of stuff that we all often go through. So yeah, so this trip for me is like not only just going to see bears, but I feel like for me, a pivotal moment as an entrepreneur of using my business to fund fun things in life. Because if we're not having fun in our life because our business is making us miserable, then why are we doing it? And I was there for years. Like my business made me miserable. Like I love doing it, but like I'm not very happy doing it. So yeah. So long story short, that is like the explanation of my bear trip. And I don't know why I just shared so much information with you.
No, that's so good. I mean, our businesses, it's so easy to get caught up in being obsessed with our business because we love it and we're passionate about it.
Yeah.
But remembering that our businesses are supposed to be a tool to, we should use that to reinvest in our life and life
Exactly.
experiences like that, that are so bigger than ourselves. I think everyone needs to put themselves in some situation in nature, usually to where they get a sense of something bigger than themselves and humble themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's probably not much more humbling experiences than being surrounded by big bears in Alaska. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think it's very easy to get caught up in just like being in work mode and not paying yourself enough and not focusing on profit first and like treating your business like a hobby. But then also when you treat it like a business, like I need to pay myself, I need to make profit. Am I doing things that are making profit? But like I said, a big thing for me has been, I need to have more fun. I need to structure my business so it's fun for me and not the opposite. So it's not easy to do that either. Like it's like a muscle you have to kind of retrain and I don't know, but yeah, I'm very excited about my trip and I know I'm completely like batshit crazy, but oh my God, I can't even tell you how excited I am.
Oh, I love it. You're inspiring me. I want to do something like that.
And isn't it, it's kind of feels exhilarating to book this like ridiculous trip and just why not? Like,
Yeah.
what's something scary that you could do and you could just go do it? I mean, I don't know. I feel like I just keep saying, why not? Like, why not just go? I don't know.
Yeah.
My personality has like I've always been a traveler and I love adventure and so this isn't like super crazy for me, but it is because of it's sort of unsafe. I mean, probably a lot unsafe, but they say it's safe, so we'll see. I don't know. Hopefully I make it back, but if I don't, um, you know, yeah, never mind. Okay. All right. I feel like I've rambled way too much. Tell everyone where they
Yeah, I love
tell
it.
everyone where they can find you, where they can buy your candles, and you know, where they can follow you on social, your website, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's Weathered Wood Home on Instagram and Facebook. Although I will say I'm not active on Facebook. I should probably delete that. So just connect with me on Instagram at Weathered Wood Home. Or my website, weatheredwoodhome.com. That's where you can purchase a candle and sign up for my email list. And that's probably going forward going to be my favorite way to communicate with everybody, just because like we talked about vulnerability and opening it up. I think I could do that a lot better on email, at least to start out with. And I
Yeah.
do have a code if people would like to get 15% off of their first order. They can use code FIRST15 at checkout and get 15% off of their first purchase.
Is that first like FIRST or one ST?
Yes. Oh, good question.
Gotta
First
be, gotta make it easy for
FIRST.
people. Oops, sorry. Say it again. Say it again. Sorry.
Yeah, no, first as in FIRST. Yes. Good question.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. So awesome just to hear more of, you know, your story and just so many cool little tidbits that people can take away. So thank you so much for your time and obviously so good to see you.
And if there's any boutique owners out there listening, email me about wholesale.
Yes.
I'm very, very excited about that. But thank you so much for having me on. This was so much fun to talk to you.
It was
I
fun.
honestly forgot that I was on a podcast. So this was fun.
I think I told you it's going to be fun. We'll have a good
Yeah.
conversation.
Yep, you're right.
All right. Thanks, Lindsay.